All right, so this video is in a classroom setting. It's not a professional video, and we will be posting it here shortly. We are printing basically a greeting card, but before we're printing it, we're discussing some things about bleeds and how we set up bleeds, how we also will set up our fold lines, because InDesign does not do that for us. So first off, I have a background, which is, mind you, this is not pretty. So just that's how we're rolling today with this example. And I have a background color, but I need to have this set so that there's a bleed. If you didn't start the document out with a bleed and you want to go ahead and add some bleed lines, you would go to File, Document Setup. And here you can see what my document setup is. It's 4 pages. I start numbering at number 2 in this option. It's a standard card size at 4 1/4 by 5 inches. And then my bleed is not set yet. Now, if your bleed's not showing, you can click on the arrow next to bleed and slug. We typically, for a size of a piece like this, the bleed would be 1/8 of an inch. Now, if this were a billboard, we'd have a much bigger bleed. So 1/8 of an inch is 0.125. If it is in picas here, a bleed is 0p9. 0 picas, 9 points. It's equivalent. So if you're in picas, it would be 0p9. If you're in inches, it's 0.125 in. If you're in millimeters, well, sorry, don't know. I'm going to hit OK on this, and what it's going to do, it's going to put a little red line. It's a non-printing object. It puts a little red line around my document. Now, any graphic that I want to go off the edge of the page, I need to pull the bleed to that red line. We call it pulling the bleed. And if your bleeds are pulled way too far out past that line, it's not the end of the world, but you want to be tidy. So we want to go ahead and do what's industry standard, which is snap it to the 1/8 of an inch line that's outside of the card area. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off for just a moment that background. The white area is absolutely printable area. Everything that's white is printable. Anything that's gray is outside the printable area. It can get printed, but it's going to get cut off. So that's why our bleed is out there. Now, let's talk about how we might go about printing something like this. There are 2 different ways to print this, depending on if you created this in booklet format, meaning this would be page 1. There would not be a page here at all. And your back cover would be down as page 4. I have created mine a little differently, where I have my back cover and my front cover together, so I do not have to go to File and Print Booklet. I just simply print front to back.
Is that why they have a problem printing it?
Sometimes they may have a problem printing it.
Because it's just one at the front.
Because they don't understand.
That's how I have mine.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to tip the same place.
Yes. Let's talk about that for just a moment. If I have a new document, let's say it's, again, I have 4 pages. I start with page 1. And this is, say, the width would be 4.25 for a pretty standard by 5.5. Let me set the bleed. This one's in picas, so P9. Hit OK. In this case, where I have 4 pages like this, it's okay to design this way. It's not a problem at all. Yes, they may have some more difficulty with this because they have to figure out how to get this back page married up to the front page. And many people are not trained properly to do that, so it confuses them and they end up with a hot mess on your hand, and it's trouble. So I'll cover this method here in just a moment. Okay, I will copy and paste my elements to that, so that way we know what the front and back and sides are. But for now, let's do this one. Either way, we are going to have to create our own dotted lines for a fold. Now, there's some method to this. I'm going to get the straight line. I'm going to get the line tool. These lines by industry standard would be 1/2 of a point, so I'm going to choose 1/2 of a point, which is 0.5 pt. And they typically are in the color of registration, because if this is a 4-color process printer in the real world on our high-end press, they want that little line to fall on every single printing plate. So registration is 100% black, 100% magenta, 100% cyan, and 100% yellow. That's what that is. Don't use that as black. That will give you a lot of problems. So that's the colors of the world right there. So what I do is I typically, because I like to snap to, I'll just draw it down here along the fold of the page. Hold down your shift key while I do that, so it'll be perfectly straight. And the reason why I do that, it lines and snaps right to that point. I don't want to have to guess, so I'm kind of lazy. And I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to move it up. You'll see that I move it up past the bleed line. The bleed line is 1/8 of an inch. We will want this to print, so we're going to have to do something special in the print dialog box for this to show up. Before I do anything else, I need to make sure this is a dotted line because this represents a cut line. And if I were to send this out to the printer, they would cut there. They would not assume, we can't assume they know anything about what we're doing here. So I'm going to do this as a dashed line. You could do it as a dotted line or a dashed line. Dash is usually what we use. Now I'm going to copy that little line. Oh, by the way, normally crop marks are a 1/2 inch long. So if you really wanted to get technical, you could technically say that the length here, here's the length, is 0.5. If you really wanted to get technical, and then pop him into place. I hold down the shift key so he stays in line. Now I'm going to copy him, and I am going to zoom out, and I'm going to go to the bottom of this card, and I'm going to paste him. And I'm going to make sure that he aligns to where he needs to align. Then I hold down the shift key and I move him out to the edge. Now, I'm not working smarter at this point, I'm actually working harder because I will have to copy and paste these two to the other page. By the way, did I say those were 1 inch tall? They're supposed to be a 1/2 inch tall. Did I make that 1 inch? Oh, it's a 1/2 inch. Seems like it's big. If I wanted to have these happen on every single page of the document, which I would, I'm actually going to cut these, edit, cut, that deletes them and copies them. And I'm going to go to my Pages panel, and I'm going to go to my master page, and I'm going to go to Edit and Paste in Place. It puts it exactly in the position that I had them. Mm-hmm. Now when I go to pages, oh, it doesn't show it, 4 and 5, and why is it not there? 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me drag the master to those, see if it'll do it. Did they do something new here? This is interesting. It should show up because it's on the master page. All right, well, it's not. Fabulous. Well, I'm going to cut them. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to go ahead and paste them in place here. I'm a little concerned about that. So I guess I'm having to work harder now because it seems like it's not going to show up. All right.
What's the difference from, what's the difference from doing that and adding actual crop marks?
Well, the machine is going to, or the software will add the crop marks here in just a moment.
So there's no difference.
I don't have to add crop marks. It will not, though. The software will not automatically add a fold mark. So I have to add that. The crop marks will be done by the software.
Fold mark.
Fold.
And the crop mark just tells you
where to cut it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the software automatically puts crop marks on in the right place, so I don't have to draw any of those. Okay? I'm going to save this. Now, when it's time to print this, this is not the print booklet format because I have my front and back cover together. So I'm just going to simply go to File and Print, not File, Print Booklet. All right, that's the other option, but I'm going to go to File and Print. In this case, I'm going to choose the printer that's in our classroom right now. We could choose 341, and but last I heard the printer drivers weren't loaded properly and they're not taking cardstock properly. So we're gonna use the one in the classroom. I do want spreads turned on. I need to make sure this is flipped so that it is going the right direction. It's getting cut off right now. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I need to change here? I don't think so. So I'm going to go to Setup, and I am printing on letter size paper. That's what I put in the printer, and I'm going to go to the orientation and tell it to be portrait or landscape. Now, if this prints front to back right now, they'll be offset from one another. They won't line up. So I need to make sure my page position is set to centered. So it's center front and back. If you don't do that, they won't line up. Do not scale to fit. When you guys go out to other places, they oftentimes have that set as a default, and your stuff gets larger or smaller than what you designed it as. That is almost 99% set as a default at your service providers such as Staples and FedEx and all that. So you have to tell them, do not scale to fit. This needs to be printed the size that I designed it. Now we're going to go to marks and bleeds. We want crop marks for sure. Now, right now, use document bleed setting is turned on because we set that bleed at 1/8 of an inch, but we actually need to have that print the bleed a little wider so that we can catch this dotted line. Now, we didn't bring the dotted line into the bleed because what happens if we cut and we're slightly off? Well, we'll see a little piece of that dotted line in our design. We don't want to, so that's why it's past that 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to uncheck use document bleed settings in this particular instance. It'll still print my bleed, but I'm going to set this at 1/2 an inch instead of 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to put 0.5. It will, all the way around. See how it's only going to get it at the top? I want to click on that chain. Now it's going to print the bleed outside of that graphic a whole 1/2 an inch. It'll capture some of this information that's out there. Output, yes, I want CMYK composite. We shouldn't have to change anything there. We don't need to worry about graphics or color management or advanced or summary. So mainly we're looking at the general. As a review, we would make sure our proper printer is selected. We would make sure spreads is turned on. As a review for setup, we want letter. We want the orientation to be landscape. We want the page position to be centered. And again, as review for marks and bleeds, we turn only the crop marks on. And then we uncheck use document bleed setting and get us a 1/2 an inch bleed. Yes, we have a question.
I'm trying to print my card. Actually, I didn't do what I did, but the marks, the registration, I just checked here. And they had like
Yeah, there's a registration mark that automatically hits centered.
yes.
However, a registration mark is not a fold line. In the industry, what that registration mark is used for is on press. If their cyan plate's a little off, the registration mark will be a little off, and they use the registration marks to make sure all the color plates are all lining up properly. And that's part of the make ready on a printing job, on a real press with real sticky ink. So yes, by default, the registration mark is centered. So we know, oh, well, that's centered, I'm going to fold it. But in the real world, if I were sending this out, I would have to draw those little dotted lines. But yes, you raise a good point. The registration mark, it falls right about here, which is center. And yeah, if you just score that, you're perfect. But I'm trying to get you guys ready for a little bigger process. All right. Now, I'm not going to hit print yet because I have not told it what kind of paper I'm printing to. Now, guess what? On the printer, there is that diagram that we talked about. You know, ours is the paper I'm putting on right now is 120 pound, which is extra heavyweight cardstock. That diagram will tell me if it will automatically print double-sided to that or not. I'm going to look at this diagram, and it'll say two-sided printing far on the right, and I'm looking at extra heavyweight cardstock. There is no check mark or little ball there. This will not automatically print double-sided. We have to print it, go up here, flip it, and print it again. The question is, do we flip it on its long edge or do we flip it on a short edge? I don't remember. That's horrible for me, but I don't remember. I think we flip it on its long edge. We flip it from right to left, but I don't know. We'll find out. If it prints upside down, you'll know I'm wrong.
What size?
This, I cut it down to 8.5 by 11. I'm gonna.
I was gonna say, I think if you flip on the straight.
It just also depends on what we have in there. It depends on if the paper is going this way, vertical, or if it's going landscape. Mine's going landscape, so I think I'm gonna have to flip it left to right, instead of top to bottom. All right, so that is important. Now, sometimes there is a flip on short edge and long edge in here, but since it doesn't do double-sided, it doesn't matter. Now I'm gonna go to printer.
Is it just that printer that doesn't do that?
Every printer. Anytime you print heavyweight cardstock on a laser printer, well, not anytime, most of them do not do automatic double-sided. You have to print one side and flip it, yeah. And if you're printing, let's say I'm printing 10 of these, it will print all 10 of them the front side. Then I just grab the stack, flip it, stick it back in there, and it'll print all 10 back sides. It's not like you have to do them one at a time. So there is a process that's pretty quick. Now I'm going to click on the printer button, which is down near the lower left-hand corner. It's going to give me a thing that says, I'm just going to hit OK. I should hit, don't show that again because it doesn't, what it's doing is just, I don't need to know. Oh my goodness, I should have probably saved this. Look at that ball just spinning and spinning. Oh, okay. I want to make sure I'm going to 328 laser, the correct printer that I planned on printing on. Now, we want this. I'm going to hit hide details for just a second. It says two-sided printing. Well, I'm going to turn that off because it won't automatically do it anyway. And now I'm going to show details again. Where it says layout, I need to grab onto this Xerox features item because we're printing to a Xerox. Click on that. And here, the paper type. It says white and printer default type. We want to click on that little arrow that's out to the right-hand side, go to other type, and we want to make sure that extra heavyweight cardstock is selected. It has to be exactly the same verbiage as what was up here. You'll see there's extra heavyweight glossy cardstock. If I choose that, it will not print. It'll say resources required. I have to choose extra heavyweight cardstock because that's what we set at the printer. One-sided printing because it won't automatically do double-sided printing. In fact,
there was a way that there could, because I had to print a booklet
you were lucky.
in this class.
With extra heavyweight cardstock or just
Not
regular?
extra, with
Yeah, with
So-
regular cardstock, it automatically prints double-sided.
So you
Or
can
regular paper.
But
Oh
when
yeah.
you do like the different paper, you have to flip it on your own.
Yeah. In fact, if I go to two-sided printing right here, look. Two-sided printing option is not available when you are using extra heavyweight
I was
cardstock.
just confused then. I'm like, I swear I did.
So even if I tried to tell it two-sided printing, it wouldn't do it anyway. All right. It knows that it can't do it. Now I'm going to hit print, and I'm going to click print again. Now, because I've already loaded the paper in the printer and I've set it to extra heavyweight cardstock, this should automatically print on one side once I release the job here when it finally comes up. Here we go. I'm going to say yeah. And it's going to print, and we can hear the printer rolling right now. When it comes out, I'm going to, this is really important, you flip it and put it back in. And I'm going to flip it left to right, not tail to foot. Okay, flip it left to right. If I'm wrong, it'll print wrong it'll print upside down on the other side. When I put this in here, it may ask me, hey, what kind of paper are you using? 8.5 by 11 extra heavyweight cardstock. I have to hit OK. Okay. You can't just put it in there and go, oh, it's going to print. You actually have to tell it, yeah, that's extra heavyweight cardstock. The paper is curled a little bit, so it may have a problem. Sometimes I try to uncurl it and flatten it. If it just never seems to print, it's having a difficult time sensing the paper. You notice how it's not printing? It's probably because this is not a difficult job. I have 2 words on there, or a couple of words on that other side. So I'm going to take the paper out of the paper tray and try to make it straight again so that I can put it in there, make sure I don't flip it or anything. Oh, it likes that. So when you guys just flip it and put it in there and it doesn't take it, it's probably curled up enough that the sensors aren't even seeing that there's a piece of paper in there. So there's a nice little trick and tip there. Now, did it print upside down on one side? No, I flipped it correctly. This is right reading on both of these. And it's too dark to tell if they're lining up. But if they're not lining up perfectly, this is a small card too, by the way. This is like postcard size. Your cards may be bigger and you may be printing to 11 by 17. This is a tiny card size. Maybe it should have been this size. But anyway, now what I would do I would score this. Oh, let's see if I have Martha. Martha, where are you? Martha. Uh-oh, where's Martha? We gotta find Martha.
Somebody kidnapped her?
Well, she's somewhere. Yeah. Martha's been kidnapped. Yep, I don't know where Martha is. She's usually here. Martha is this product created by Martha Stewart. It's a $20 product, and it's a scoring tool. And I will show it to you online since we don't have her right here right now.
She's in the other classroom.
Oh, somebody's borrowed her.
No.
Oh.
You showed her.
Did I leave her? I left Martha?
Martha, seriously? Wow.
Child abuse.
Child abuse.
Now, Martha
$150? There's no way. Are you kidding me? Look at that. Somebody's trying. What? Somebody is trying to really screw some people over. It is a $25 product. Who's doing this? They're horrible. Unless it's a pack of 10 of them or something.
if you're doing it for, I mean, just as a thought of before I knew about Martha, it's what I used to do. I used an empty pen.
I do the same thing. Before I had Martha, I would take ink pens that were void of ink because I used them all up. I saved those like a pack rat. And I use those as my scoring tool because the roller ball doesn't tear the paper. It presses it and it makes an excellent scoring tool. I'm going to stop. Oh no, I'm going to stop this right now. I'm going to because we'll cut stuff in a second. We need to talk about, and I'll find Martha. Oh, so she's not too MIA. I need to talk about the other style, which is the booklet style, where you guys did it this way. Let me grab some text so that we can do this the same way. I'm just going to copy and paste in place. Oh, I changed my measurements clearly. Let me paste in place here. Just stealing from robbing Peter to pay Paul, they say. I need to get my document set up the same though. Edit, paste in place. And then the last page would be this. Paste in place. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of a few things. Well, it doesn't really matter. I can leave that out there. It's not important. Now, with this, you still do need to draw. Hold on. My page setup is just crazy. Let's see what this guy was. Document setup was 4.25 by 5. So this one was wrong. 4.25. Oh, let's do inches. In design, you have to change both your horizontal and vertical rulers. Otherwise, it still remembers what it used to be, which was, in this case, picas. Oh, I did 5.5. That's why that's not working. Say okay. Excuse me. Thank you. All right, there we go. That's properly done. Now, you don't have to have the word back, and we could probably tighten this up a bit. You probably don't have all this junk floating out like this, so I'm going to get rid of my junk. There we go. You still want to do what we did before, and that is draw your folding lines, because it will not give them to you automatically. Then you want to go to File, Print Booklet. It knows to put the back cover with the front cover and so on. Here we want to uncheck, let's see, automatically adjust to fit marks and bleeds. We want to uncheck margins. Here it doesn't say bleeds here. So, but this is about bleeds. I want to uncheck that, and I want to set that to 0.5, just like I did the other one. We don't need to worry about spacing or anything since there's not multiple pages. It's just one piece of paper folded. I want to go to preview, and oh, that doesn't look very good. So there are some things that I need to adjust. There is a print settings button, which I'm going to set the right kind of paper, the right layout, landscape, or portrait, that kind of thing. So this looks very familiar to what we had before. We don't click on spreads because it automatically in Print Booklet does it by itself, so it's not even available. So I don't have to change anything here. I go to Setup. I'm going to make it landscape instead of portrait. Your page position definitely needs to be centered, just like the previous one. Marks and bleeds, we've already, oh, nope, there we go. It says 0.125. I'm going to set that as 0.5 inches. Crop marks, we certainly want those. And then output, we don't have to worry about. I will need to go to printer again, and I do set up the proper paper It doesn't matter if I can hide details and see if it says two-sided. I just get in a habit of turning that off because by default it's on, and it really frustrates you when you don't want it. Now I'm going to show details, go to Xerox features just like I did before. This is identical to what we did before. Click on paper and output. I'm sorry. Yes. No. I'm sorry, I'm having a moment with my head. We go here and we choose the other type as extra weight heavy cardstock if that's what you're using. Sometimes it's heavyweight cardstock, which is a little bit lighter than this 120, but I have extra heavyweight cardstock. It will not do two-sided printing. It'll give me a warning because that paper doesn't do it. I hit print and it's pretty much going to be the same thing that we did before. I hit OK. I look here. Looks good. 4 and 1 go together. That'd be front and back. And then the other two should be in here too. There we go. 2 and 3 are together. I would hit print. I'm not going to necessarily follow through with this because I don't have another piece of paper in there, but we'd do the same thing. We'd print it one side, we'd flip it, and we'd have something that we need to fold and cut. All right. I'm going to stop the video presentation right now, and I will save it real quick.